Tony go! Let Tony go! Let Tony go!
The NYPD is arresting a lot of heroes lately. They're really showing the contradictions.
And it's worth saying that's Antonio Rosario, he was in the 1997 UPS strike. He was a teenager back then. He was at UPS forever. He's now kind of an extremely respected Amazon.
As you guys know, we have a return guest in the building, not in the building, joining us via Discord. The number one labor reporter in the nation, award-winning, celebrated, decorated journalist Alex Press is in the building, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm very happy to, I'm very honored that Alex Press is here to talk to us about the role that police play in picket lines, both historically and also right now, and how it ties back to the Amazon labor union's actions, Teamster actions being taken at this very moment. Alex Press, hello.
Hey, Hasan, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm a little tired. I got up pretty early to get to that picket line.
Yeah, lazy socialist doesn't want to wake up early. Classic. What else is new?
It was for a good cause. I was happy to do it.
All right. So Alex, I'm hearing that there is a lot of labor momentum occurring right now. There's a picket line happening. There's a strike happening. Can you give us a little bit of detail on that? Can you give us some background on what's going on?
Yeah, so 7 different Amazon facilities have strikes right now. So the Teamsters represent I think it's 10 total, and 7 of those are now on strike. At all of these facilities, they're not the giant warehouses. Like JFK 8 is the most well-known one that went with the Teamsters after organizing as the ALU. These are smaller delivery hubs. They're called sort centers. They're usually like in the bigger cities. They're like last mile delivery. In certain ways, they're more strategic because they're those choke points that Amazon has a little more trouble getting around. They're also easier to organize because they're more like 1,000 people working there rather than like 7,000, which is what JFK 8 at Staten Island is. So workers at 7 of these facilities have organized with the Teamsters. I think it's important for people to know it's not that every worker or the majority of workers necessarily at all of these places have organized with the Teamsters. These workers are classified as third-party contractors, so they like technically work for another company, right? So you'll get an Amazon package delivered to your door, and the driver will be wearing an Amazon, shirt. He'll be driving an Amazon car, maybe an Amazon branded van, but he might actually be employed by a third party that exists pretty much just to contract out to Amazon. And that's kind of the key of the argument here. Is it's very clear to the workers, to the Teamsters, to anybody who pays attention to this stuff, that this is a misclassification, that Amazon does this so that they don't have to deal with, benefit and the things like workplace discrimination suits and any of the stuff that comes with being an employer. But Amazon says, no, these aren't our employees. It's not our problem if they want to organize. We don't have to bargain with them. So the Teamsters kind of escalated by giving them a deadline to start bargaining of December 15th. Amazon is continuing to stonewall. So now the escalation is a strike. And these strikes one's in New York City, which is where I was this morning in Queens. There's another in Illinois outside of Chicago. There's one in Atlanta. And then there's 3 in California.
So these are DSPs, right? Like delivery. Yeah. Okay. So it seems like there are some legal issues that the Teamsters have with DSPs. I'm looking at freightwaves.com. It says Teamsters have some legal issues to overcome after wins at Amazon and with DSPs. Big questions. Is card check the same as a vote? Is Amazon a joint employer with delivery companies? And this is I feel like a streamlined process of like, I'm going to use a word here that's silly, but the gigification of every aspect of the American economy, like all aspects of labor. And what are some of these complications in terms of like having coverage and being protected by the Teamsters?
Yeah, I mean, the gigification in part sometimes the intention, sometimes just a happy bonus, is that it makes it harder for workers to organize, right? They have all of a sudden these legal obstacles to overcome because they're technically not employees of the person that they really, it'd be fine if they wanted to bargain with these smaller DSPs, but the DSPs have no power. They respond to Amazon's needs, right? And we've seen this again and again where DSP owners themselves sometimes even go kind of nuclear against Amazon and say, like, hey, we're on the side with the workers, but we don't set the times, we don't set the pay scale, all these things that show that it wouldn't make any sense to bargain with them. So the big thing here is, one, there's like the legal side, which the NLRB has been making moves to say that it agrees that Amazon should have joint employer status, which would make them have to bargain with these workers. But on the flip side, there's just the kind of the worker-led strategy, which is, NLRB, all well and good, legal obstacles, great, we'll work through them in the courts. But in the meantime, you just start acting like a union. And that's kind of what the Teamsters and these workers are doing right now, is they haven't had formal NLRB elections. They're still wending their way through these court objections and these hearings. And they're just saying, whatever, we need progress now, and we're going to act like a union, and we're going to hold pickets, and we're going to keep recruiting. And that's what I was seeing all morning, was they're talking to their coworkers, many of whom were scabbing. It's not like every driver in these facilities is in the union. So these are escalations where you just act like a union, and that makes you a union. So I think it's, in some ways it's a good thing. In other ways, it's really risky, right? Because if you have very few people participating, that can really be demoralizing for people.
Yeah. And then there's also potential repercussions, like you can get fired, and there's like less protection under the NLRB in terms of like what the companies can do, even though I guess it doesn't necessarily matter all that much, considering that even in instances like Starbucks, I feel like companies have directly found themselves in clear violation of the law. And my suspicion is, and I think you and I talked about this before, their goal here is to escalate this and turn it into a legal precedent that goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, where the obviously Republican right-wing supermajority Supreme Court will side with corporations as they have done historically, and will virtually gut the remainder protections that the NLRB offers to workers in terms of workers that want to unionize. Like, you can't fire a worker directly for wanting to unionize, but I think that they want to destroy that as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is they don't even care when there are legal protections. So it's interesting to see that there are no legal protections in this circumstance, and yet they're still choosing to engage in some kind of work stoppage and
yeah, I mean, when you're pushed to the breaking point, you're just going to act, and you're going to try to have dignity. I think it's worth saying that Amazon right now is one of the several companies that, yes, is challenging the constitutionality of the NLRB itself. It's an active case. It's worth mentioning because another person doing that is Elon Musk through SpaceX. His company also has, the NLRB found him liable for having violated some of his workers' rights. And so in response, he too is going all out, trying to undo the NLRB, which again has been around since the 1930s. And I mean, it's incredible timing in that Jeff Bezos right now is at Mar-a-Lago. He was spotted having dinner with Trump. So this, and Trump, Trump's administration is very much, and some Democrats like Kristen Sinema and Manchin just ensured that Trump's NLRB will have a majority conservative Republican appointees. Any kind of good things the NLRB has been doing almost certainly will be undone very soon. And so it's really worth looking at, it's a small club and you're not in it, right? Like, all of these people are working together. And it's very, very obvious now that all these people are in on the same thing. And they're up against, again, these workers that are now the second most employees in the country as far as a company. So it's everybody against this handful of rich people who are openly collaborating now.
So I wanted to also, in the interest of collaborating, I wanted to also talk about how the cops have been seemingly collaborating with big business in this circumstance. There was a lot of police presence, it seems, at the picket line this morning. I want to ask you what your personal experience was, but I want to briefly start by covering this part of it. from Labor on the Line. Breaking: New York Police Department arrests Teamsters organizer and leader in attempts to break the strike of thousands of Amazon workers with Amazon Teamsters. One fact that I also wanted to bring up here for chatters who are, who might not know, is that the number of DSPs, these like contracted workers from Amazon side is, I believe, around 300,000. So it's not like a tiny, minuscule number of people. This is very clearly a important part of the Amazon logistics. Now that you have that understanding, so it seems like the cops are working and colluding with Amazon, doing their dirty work. I want to ask you, is this allowed? I want to ask you what's going on here, what you experience as well here. Let's watch this video first, though.
Let Tony go! 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 Let Tony go!
The NYPD is arresting a lot of heroes lately. They're really showing the contradictions.
And it's worth saying that's Antonio Rosario, he was in the 1997 UPS strike. He was a teenager back then. He was at UPS forever. He's now kind of an extremely respected Amazon. He's working on the Amazon organizing campaign. He's in local 804, which is the UPS local in New York City. He's a wonderful guy and a great organizer, and kind of, this people couldn't believe he was arrested. But in part, it seems to me like it's very obvious that he specifically was arrested because he's so much kind of a leader in these respects. But I want to say that two things. One, and yeah, you're pulling up the video now. The first arrest was this driver. So as I said, a lot of drivers are still just driving through, the picket line was a picket line, but every few minutes people would kind of open it to let one vehicle through and then reconstitute the picket line again. So this driver was one that was going through, but every time they would get stopped by the picketers, and the picketers would talk to them, and the chant was "put it in park." People would try to convince them to join the picket line. This guy actually decided to join the picket line, so kind of a heroic thing that you always want. And as this video that I took shows, as he tried to join the picket line, first the NYPD literally tried to throw him back in the vehicle and put his seatbelt back on, like, keep driving. And then when he insisted on coming out, they arrested him. And it's funny, you can see a sign, one of the picket signs says "Obey the law," speaking to Amazon. But there's the NYPD have no right to arrest someone for doing this. He has the right to be involved in this strike. The picketers Amazon is breaking the law by refusing to bargain with its own workers. And yet there's just one person under arrest here, and it's this driver.
Yeah. I mean, it is pretty crazy.
And I would say that, like, apparently from what I hear in New York, it was particularly bad. I mean, the police very explicitly broke the picket line after several hours of a serious picket line. After arresting Rosario, dozens of them, they said they were going to arrest everyone if they didn't start letting vehicles through. They had no right to arrest everyone. People were on a publicly owned sidewalk. And yet it's very clear that, people were asking me, why would they do this? The NYPD doesn't work for Amazon. And the answer is, well, maybe they do. And Amazon is very powerful in this city. And so I'm curious what will result from that, but it was really remarkable to see the cops explicitly kind of protecting the flow of capital.
So I have a question about that. Aren't cops also wage employees that also have a union, as a matter of fact?
They do have a union, but I wouldn't say they're workers like any other. I mean, I always say when workers meet cops on the picket line, the cops are facing them, right? They meet them as obstacles to the picket line. The cop places themselves on the wrong side of history, and I think that's just naturally how we should see it. Cops always have been there to kind of protect the flow of business interests in this country, and it becomes very explicit in times like this, where you see NYPD literally locking arms to ensure that Amazon's packages can get out. Usually it's not so obvious, but there's no question that when you look at these images that, cops are not in the labor movement. They're meeting the labor movement as obstacles.
Yeah, it's confusing because I love cops, and I thought that they were unionized employees, but look at the it seems like they're holding hands here to demonstrate solidarity with the working class. But what is happening here, if you don't mind me asking?
So the cops were forming these lines to ensure that they were starting to form lines to ensure that the vans could go through. So it was early stages
Is
of
this
that.
guy
But
wearing
if
a
you
loss prevention jacket?
Yeah, so Amazon's loss prevention people are the ones that basically were ensuring each car would go through. So they were like, it was the cops hand in hand with Amazon's operations team, ensuring
Interesting.
that the vehicles would go through.
Interesting. So they weren't locking arms in unity with the picketing workers. It seems like they were locking arms to stop the picketing workers from stopping the delivery drivers from going into the facility.
That's correct. It was stopping the picketers from preventing the cars from going out of the
Okay.
lot.
So let's talk about the demands being made by DSP a little bit more, like by these striking workers a little bit more. What are the conditions? What do the conditions look like for these guys in general? The
Yeah,
people that are on the picket line, and what do they
yeah.
want?
So the delivery drivers for Amazon that work for DSPs, at this facility in New York City, they make about $22 an hour, which is not much in New York City. They generally deliver, hundreds of packages per shift. So as you've probably seen, Amazon drivers will hop out in the middle of the street and run up and drop off packages, just like warehouse workers inside the facilities. They do very similar jobs to UPS drivers, which is why it kind of makes sense that the Teamsters are organizing with them. And I actually was speaking to one worker who's very much an active member of this union at that location in Queens. And he used to be a UPS driver. And he was like, I'm doing the exact same job and I have no benefits. I'm making like a quarter of what I was making at UPS. And it's completely ludicrous. They have no health insurance. That's another thing that is one of their key demands here. This breaks their body. I spoke to one worker who's in the union who talked about being given, faulty equipment that could have hurt her. And she was told, no, it was fine. It was her fault. And again, this is a young woman who had to carry these packages and had asked for equipment that would help her with that. So it's basic demands here. But right now, the strike isn't even about one particular thing like healthcare or more money. It's about literally having Amazon sit down and start talking to them. And Amazon
And
is
recognizing
not
them as
only
like employees, you're saying, right? Because currently they're
yeah,
gig employees.
yeah.
Um,
But it's not only that Amazon is refusing to do that for these drivers, Amazon is also still refusing to do that at JFK 8, where the employees are already their employees, right? There's no dispute that those workers who joined the ALU, which is now part of the Teamsters, there's never been a dispute that they are employees. And Amazon is still obstructing and trying to get out of having to bargain with them. They won that victory 2.5 years ago now. And so Amazon is obstructing workers whether they're employees or not. So I think it's important to know that Amazon wouldn't act any different if these employees were differently classified. They have no interest in treating these people better.
uh-huh. Okay. So there is the Amazon driver Yoger Nizin Cardenas is the name. I'm butchering that. Has been freed. I wanted to hear what he had to say. Let's take a look.
Up earlier, so he's got a few words. Give it up for him, everybody. Give it up.
Thank you. Yo, we gotta keep it together so we can make this shit happen. That's the only way we're gonna make it happen.
Yes,
Now,
we wanna
whoever
make it
don't wanna be here, keep it moving. That's all. We gotta be up.
Up earlier.
What do you think about the media coverage surrounding this? Because I feel like a lot of people are hyper focused on the Luigi Mangione case right now, as he was extradited to New York. They perp walked him earlier this morning. We don't know if he killed the United Healthcare CEO or not, but people certainly seem to think so, and many people are saying that he may or may not even be a saint or a hero. I would never, of course. I condemn violence. I do not condone it. Having said that, do you feel like there's appropriate coverage on these kinds of labor movements in general, like broadly from mainstream press?
I mean, I think we have over the past few years, and I'm sure you've seen this, gotten a lot more coverage of labor. And some of it is better. Though when I was looking at kind of the interviews, I looked at what Sean O'Brien was being asked on Fox Business today, and even on some more mainstream rather than right wing publications. The focus is still always on how is this affecting consumers. Like, it was incredible. The TV host kept asking Sean O'Brien, but aren't you punishing consumers? What about Santa? How do you explain this to the American public? It's this belief that, again, like, workers are this separate group from the American public, who presumably are all rich people who just order from Amazon and could never be affected by poor working conditions. And that is something that has been the case ever since the American labor movement was in decline, for the past half a century. That all of a sudden the news media presents workers as like this threat to you, the reader or the viewer. And I think we're still seeing that. And it's very obvious with this, even though, as much as I hate to say it, and I wish it weren't true, these strikes are not going to affect very many packages, right? These are 10,000 workers around total, at 7 facilities out of hundreds of facilities and hundreds of thousands of workers that do this job. So while I wish it was more, it's a very small start to an organizing campaign. And yet you see this hysteria about, like, how will people get their packages for Christmas? And so I think there's a long way to go. And, there's a reason that a lot of these outlets don't, they're never going to change their coverage. They would rather these workers just shut up and let the capital flow.
Yeah, there's also the Longshoremen Union with a looming threat of a port strike that has the potential of happening as well. It says here that Trump again backs Longshore Union as a possible port strike. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because when the longshoremen did actually threaten to strike a couple months prior, there was very similar commentary on this. They talked about the leader of the union and how wealthy he is and all this stuff. And I think one of the things that they engaged in their communications was just like being uncompromising and openly talking about Harold Daggett, openly talking about the importance of labor unions and the importance of the longshoremen in general, the dock workers, like the treacherous nature of the job, the harrowing conditions, and how hard they work throughout COVID, for example, putting their lives at risk, putting their safety at risk without ever demanding anything else, and generating a tremendous amount of profits. I feel like overall, Americans are very selfish people, and it's very hard to instill class solidarity amongst them. And it's very hard to even get them to recognize that they are in a very similar condition to these unionized workers. But it did feel like, given the power that the longshoremen had, given the power that the ILA had in completely shutting down American logistics, they were forced, the companies at least, were forced to concede to their demands, at least in the interim period. So how do we get Americans broadly to understand that labor unions are good? I know this is a very difficult, this is the most complicated question of all time, but what do you think is effective?
I mean, the controversial answer here is that, as you said, with the ILA, and the ILWU is the longshoremen union on the West Coast, you actually don't need the public to agree with you if you have the leverage. Like, this is a fight between you and your boss. And if you have the organization, you can force them to concede no matter how much they whine on the media and how much the public is up in arms. And that is good. It is why it's one of many reasons people talk about workers having the power, right? And I think there's something to be said about the idea that if and when, I would hope to say when, workers get more power in this country, there will be backlash. There are inconveniences to growing labor power. And it has to be, people like us are, of course, doing what we can, kind of like pushing this message, talking about why, it actually makes sense and is good for, say, longshoremen to have sustainable conditions rather than, I remember I was writing about the ILA strike. These workers were exhausted. They were not being safe. This is bad for everybody. But at the same time, it's really workers themselves who just, it's up to them and they don't really need you. Workers just have to get organized, and then they can force the boss to listen to their whims. That said, back in the day, Americans were pro-union. They're fairly pro-union now. And I think it, again, doesn't mean that much because they don't really see a lot of strikes and a lot of, organization yet, though it's good. I'd rather they that are that way than not. But in the past, when more Americans were in unions, new people in unions, saw that unions brought up wages across the board, both for union workers and for non-union workers, saw that it led to redistributive policies, it wasn't that hard to get them to be on board with it. So I think, sometimes it's just the media and the public opinion might follow the organizing and the workers.
Yeah. You brought up the concept of leverage, which is obviously the most significant aspect of this story. And I feel like it's important to recognize the timing of why these delivery drivers are striking. And it is because they have a maximum amount of leverage to show their worth in this moment, because holiday season is upon us. There's a lot more packages being shipped, Santa Claus and the like. Obviously, people are desperate to get their gifts in time. And I think this is a time for very high profits for Amazon, for most companies. Even Twitch streamers actually see additional revenue in the month of December because virtually every company is pumping ads into every platform, because this is when a lot of people consume. So would you say that they are taking advantage of the leverage and the additional need that Amazon has right now for extra helping hands?
Yeah, I mean, you want to maximize your leverage when you want to strike. You want to inflict economic suffering on your employer to try to force them to the table. And so, again, it was very funny watching the Fox interview with Sean O'Brien where they said, "Couldn't you have waited?" And it's like, that's a complete misunderstanding of how these things work. You want to do it when it's most inconvenient for the employer, especially when you only have a smaller percentage of the workers. So yeah, this is the time, and during these peak seasons, which come at a few times around the year, Thanksgiving and Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Prime Day, this holiday that Amazon itself made up and now has extended into several days. Like during these times, Amazon workers in the warehouses, their injury rates are something like 3 times what they usually are, which are already about twice as high as other warehouse workers. So these are peak times where grievances are also higher, where workers are pushed to their limits, where there's actually more reason and kind of more leverage and more excuses for workers to say to each other, "Hey, you know what? I'm actually sick of this, and I'm now willing to listen to the idea of organizing." So there's many reasons you would do it now.
Yeah. Okay. Last question I have for you, by the way. Thank you so much, Alex, for giving us some time here. And this might come as a surprise to many in this chat, and certainly was a surprise to me. I am going to be talking to Sean O'Brien tomorrow because apparently the Teamsters have a podcast. What would you want me to ask him as a question when I go on his Teamsters podcast to talk to Sean O'Brien?
I mean, I guess one kind of complicated question I have for Sean is, he's been very vocally kind of praising Josh Hawley, this Republican kind of faux populist, faux pro-worker guy, as well as being kind of soft on Donald Trump.
Yeah.
These guys who very explicitly, I think, will put an end to the idea of Amazon being a joint employer. So these are politicians who very much in the next few years, I think, will quash at least the legal side of the Teamsters kind of arguments around bargaining with Amazon. To be clear, I think workers should and will organize anyway, but the legal landscape almost certainly will get harder. And Sean is yet kind of praising these guys, even as he represents these workers who they will make their lives a lot more complicated. And I'm just curious how he thinks of that, and if he agrees that that's the case, because Josh Hawley talks a good game, and he even the other day was advocating for joint employer status, even as he ensured that the NLRB will be conservative and rule against it. So I think talk is cheap, actions speak louder than words, and these guys are snake oil salesmen, and I would like to think Sean can see that. And maybe he's just politicking, but I think there are problems with that kind of politicking. Rubber is hitting the road, and that's for his members, for these workers who, again, have really tough jobs and really need every bit of serious help they can get.
Yeah. Especially considering that there is a new leader of the NLRB that Josh Hawley voted for. It seems to me like a lot of these big corporations ultimately they're hailing her as a champion of labor. And regardless of what you may think personally of the AFL-CIO, I think their scorecard is fairly decent in terms of like quickly interpreting whether or not this person is, or at least has, a legislative track record of being pro-labor. And it seems like when your legislative track record of being pro-labor is at 10% from the AFL-CIO scorecard, I'm not exactly super stoked on, Trump's upcoming NLRB leader. So that is something that I'm interested in finding out about as well. What do you think is going to happen? Because like they hail her as a champion for the for
this is the new labor secretary that you're talking about.
Yeah, the new labor secretary. Like Trump is going to fire current NLRB general counsel Jennifer Abruzzo, who's done a tremendous job so far. Like I think far above my expectations from any Democratic administration. And replace Abruzzo with an acting general counsel who I believe has let me pull the name.
So these are two separate jobs. So labor secretary is different than the NLRB general counsel. So
that's true. You're right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
As far as the NLRB, almost certainly Trump is going to appoint a corporate side lawyer. That is, it will be a majority conservative corporate side. Even as, the NLRB's function, its mandate is to encourage. People are shocked when they read the language of the NLRA, the act that creates the NLRB. It says the act is to encourage collective bargaining. It's meant to actually aid and abet workers in organizing, not even just be neutral or something like that. And yet, under conservatives, you'll see management side attorneys trying to stop at all costs. So what I expect that things will get harder legally. I expect that, the backlash that's already been building, I mentioned the court cases from across the kind of quote unquote political spectrum. Trader Joe's also challenged the NLRB's constitutionality, which you would think, they're supposed to be this liberal progressive organization. I think we'll see more of that, and we'll see, last I checked, Trump's administration is going to have at least 9 billionaires. This is like Gilded Age, mask off, as clear as we've ever seen it. So I don't think you have to be very smart to see what's the writings on the wall. That said, you can't really put the energy back in the bottle when it comes to worker organizing. And we have seen that, especially young people. I mean, whether it's Starbucks, Amazon, whether it's the UAW workers that are organizing, both the auto workers and in white collar sectors, like they're promising things to me, and workers really aren't going to give a shit. They're going to keep doing what they have to do. Just like that worker today who got, who jumped out of his van because he didn't want to break a strike, and he got arrested. And, from what I heard of, when he got back on the picket line, he said he also had been fired for doing that. So this is somebody who needs that job, who has it a lot harder than a lot of people, and still is doing the right thing. So people will just do that no matter what the legal and political landscape looks like.
So what do you think about Lori Chavez de Remer, the labor secretary, is and what that says for a potential NLRB pick from Trump?
So Lori Chavez de Remer, people celebrated her because she was better than other Republicans.
Yeah. And maybe even some liberals like Mark Kelly.
Sure. I think people, I think there were a couple things going on. One is people are just so desperate to like own the libs and pretend that Donald Trump is like pro-worker, that they seem to think it's worth saying that this person is pro-worker when she really is not. She joined the backing of the PRO Act, the big legal law reform bill, in part to get an endorsement from a local union for her reelection. And at a time when there was no chance it was going to pass. So it wasn't like she really was going to have to go through with it. And yet people want to be suckers, I guess, so as far as political pundits go and point at it and say, see, she's pro worker. So I have very little expectations. The bar is on the floor and she is better than most conservatives. That doesn't mean anything when you have the capitalist, the ruling class actually now just completely mask off fully in power of every branch of the state. And even with her kind of the minimal pro-labor things she has to her name, very quickly Trump administration people, as reporting came out immediately after her announcement of being a nominee, immediately they were assuring business that was a little panicked that don't worry, there will be far more anti-worker people around her and in the NLRB and so on and so forth. That in fact, maybe this was just a PR move to get people off their back and to ensure that people would kind of buy the idea that they aren't going to attack the working class. So I don't have high expectations. I'd love to be surprised. I just
so you are not a TYT adjacent believer in MAGA populism.
I am not.
Is what you're saying. Okay. Just wanted to see where everyone is standing on this, in these trying times when people are confused about what's going on in the world of labor. You're not super enthusiastic about Trump's potential for being a pro-labor Republican.
As I said, it couldn't get more clear than Jeff Bezos currently being at Mar-a-Lago while his workers are on strike and while the NYPD for engaging in protected activity.
Yeah, or the fact that Elon Musk is seemingly the shadow president and is like using Twitter as a bully pulpit to straight up bully anyone and everyone that even chooses to offer, extra funds to natural disaster recovery or subsidies for farmers and the like. So yeah, it doesn't seem like things are going to turn for the better.
No, and it feels like it's rarely been easier to point that out than the way it is now.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Just in closing, I want people to know that the strike is continuing. And if you live in any of these cities, please feel free to join the picket line. They certainly could use the reinforcements. I also, Hasan, this, was part of making this movie, this documentary about the ALU in Staten Island. Movie's called Union. And we're currently, you can rent it online and the money goes towards the ALU strike fund. The ALU / their local one of the Teamsters. They may strike, they may join this strike soon. And so I encourage people to check out the movie and also donate to them.
Hell yeah. All right. Thank you, Alex Press. We look forward to your writing from this morning hasn't come out yet, has it?
It has not, no.
Okay. We look forward to reading it when it comes out. All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much, Hasan.
Bye.
Bye.
That was Alex Press. You can find her writing on Jacobin, sometimes even in the New York Times every now and then. So, I wanted to briefly touch on the ongoing ongoing labor activity in New York. Okay. Teamsters Local 767 are setting up picket lines in 3 Amazon fulfillment center locations in and around the DFW area. Hell yeah. Leveling up his interview skills. Cheers. I try to button it up a little bit, even when I'm talking to a friend, It's impossible for me not to be sarcastic, but yeah. Every single distributor passed on the Union film. Today was shortlisted for the Academy Awards. By popular demand, Union is online releases extended throughout the holidays. You can rent it at unionfilm.com. NYPD is trying to bust the Teamsters strike in Queens already. 2 arrested earlier today, a delivery driver and a local organizer. We talked about that, yeah. I'm driving right now for a DSP in Colorado. Virtually no union drive out here. Would love to see some change out here, though. Be the change you want to see in the world, chatter. Reach out to the Teamsters. USPS workers are basically Amazon drivers and we get treated worse, but we can't strike. USPS needs help. Yeah. Well, USPS is in an entirely different predicament come January as well. There's also the privatization initiatives that's truly fucking terrifying. Unionthefilm.com. Did I say unionfilm.com? Sorry. I saw something that's really funny that a chatter sent me while we were talking. It seems like Matt Walsh and the others are not actually on board with Jenk's swap in terms of Jenk's cries for leftist unity and the MAGA populism that he is talking about. It's a grift, he says. Why this leftist unity act is a total sham, says Matt Walsh. People should go back and watch our old vid from 2018. It's about police unions. The history of police is class traitors. Look at that. All the way from 2018. The fucking yellow shirt again. Yeah, I don't know why I was wearing that so much. Look at what I wrote. Alex Press, communist. God, the production quality has certainly leveled up, I think. No shot you had guest name on? Yeah, it's a template, chatter. Chill out. Anyway, you can you can go back in time and watch us talk about how you know, the police have a long history of being antagonistic towards labor. You call yourself a gamer, Lamau? Okay, you can't come to me this week of all weeks when I have gamed my freaking face off. What the hell are you talking about? I've literally I've been gaming so hard, I've been gaming offline.
So what is behind this? Sean O'Brien should know, the Teamsters General President, kind enough to join us. Sean, always good having you, but I gotta wonder, why now at Christmas time? Why this? I mean, could this have been put off until after the holiday?
Well, Neil, we've been dealing with this company for almost 2.5 years now. Enough's enough. We have the workers have spoken. They've chosen the Teamsters to represent them. We've made attempts to sit down and bargain with Amazon, with the people that we represent that signed the cards, the majority of the cards. And Amazon has refused continuously. They've even petitioned NLRB to say that what we're doing is illegal, which it's not illegal. So we have no other choice. And look, collective bargaining is all about leverage, and this is our leverage. This is our pinch point.
But you're leveraging Santa.
Yeah, well, you know, Santa would be disgusted in the behavior that Amazon has been engaging in over the last several years. They don't respect their workers. They don't respect who makes them the success they are, and we're going to hold them accountable.
They're among the highest. I understand some of these differences, but they're among the highest retail workers in the country. Now, there are beefs here. I understand some of these beefs. But again, I'm going back to the timing of this, and a lot of Amazon customers who aren't really knee-deep in the weeds on what these contract issues are. But again, it is Christmas. And again, a good many Americans will see their presents delayed if their presents get there at all.
Well, they can divert them to a good union company like United Parcel Service, DHL, and everybody else. And, you know, it's unfortunate
they
that
got
the public
6
has to be
days
put in the
to
middle.
do that.
These folks are out there 365 days a year getting abused by Amazon.
Dude, this is why you can't trust. I mean, mainstream media, again, always antagonistic to the needs of labor, and always in the pockets of corporations and the wealthy. Okay, and they will stop at nothing to make you feel, if you're tuning in and if you're watching and you're a worker yourself, they will do everything in their power to break any feeling of solidarity you might have by pitting you, a consumer, even though you're a worker normally, against other workers by saying, no, these guys are selfishly actually trying to demand more wages when they're getting paid enough. How dare they? You won't be able to get your treats. And I think that good communicators that are leaders of unions have to be uncompromising in moments like this to be like, the fuck do you mean?
Amazon, and you know, we have to set an example.
Because the reality of the matter is they're not just doing it for themselves, they're doing it for you as well. Okay? The goal is so that you can also engage in similar action in your workplaces.
No, so when you say abuse, Sean, what's going on that they're getting abused? I'm almost thinking like they're getting beaten on the job. What's going on?
They are. They're getting beaten on the job. They've got the most violations in OSHA. If you do the fact check, they're not getting paid accordingly. They're being paid through a scam, which is a third-party leasing arrangement, which they are a joint employer. These people are not being paid a livable wage. They're getting minimal benefits, if any, and it's a disgrace, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. And this company's worth $2 trillion.
Well, here's the wrap here on the company. You heard a little bit of that from our reporter, that this really isn't about a lot of workers there who are angry. This is about the Teamsters trying to get a leg in and a leg up with a company and sucking them dry for money. What do you say?
We already have a leg in, we got a leg up. We're not looking to suck anything out of any company. Amazon's got a duty to bargain, and they should sit down and bargain in good faith. Look, they know what bargaining is. They squeeze small businesses every single day. And if those businesses don't concede to their demands, what do? They ice them out. They blackball them. They don't deliver their products, force them out of business. We're not looking to do that. We're looking to sit down and negotiate and make certain that they treat their workers accordingly.
Now, this is obviously going to be a huge disruption during holiday season. I don't know what the odds are of resolving this quickly. But I'm wondering, have you talked to President-elect Trump about this? This is happening under President Biden, I get it. But something like this could be very disturbing if it lasts that long and into his inauguration, right?
Yeah, I have not talked to President Trump. I've reached out to the mayor of New York. I've reached out to the attorney general. We've got a problem in New York. Those are the only politicians that I've talked to where the police are not allowing our members their constitutional right to picket. I don't blame the rank and file NYPD. I blame the command staff and the leadership in the city.
For the chatters who were wondering yesterday where my allegiances are, how dare you get a contract from Twitch to serve ads, even though you have stopped serving ads now that your contract is done. I just want you to understand, sometimes you got to play ball so that I can have these moments, so that I can be one of the top content creators on a platform like this, and still, in moments that matter, offer a voice to people that are otherwise voiceless. Offer a voice to people in a non-contentious manner, when most of mainstream media platforms that are far larger than mine will almost always treat those who are speaking at the behest of workers as enemies. Okay, just so you understand. That's it. It must be frustrating to have to use this platform. I mean, I don't necessarily care all that much. I'll go wherever, I'll go where they have me. I'll go where I can maximize my impact. This is it. Okay? And that's precisely the reason why many people subscribe, even if there isn't a fucking top of the hour ad break. That's it. It's completely voluntary. So it was always funny whenever people get mad at that. They're like, wow, people are voluntarily subscribing to you. They want to support your stream. They want to support your continued advocacy. It's really fucked up. How dare they? YouTube has more impact? Yeah, but this is where I found the most impact. So clearly, YouTube does not have more impact. That's just your assessment of the situation. Jane Goral, gonna stream on YouTube? Gonna only stream on YouTube? I've never said that. I've literally never said that.
In New York, we have a right to picket. We should be allowed to picket, and no one should be arrested. We're doing it lawfully. And again, I don't blame the rank and file. They've got to listen to the command staff. But it's telling on how much influence Amazon has in New York. You know, I mean, did they promise the police something? I don't know that. But the reality of it is we've got a constitutional right, and we should be allowed to do it.
So let me ask you, last I heard, Sean, this was targeted in roughly 4 states, California, New York, Illinois, and Georgia. Could this go wider and at facilities far more widespread than that?
Is your contract with Twitch forever? No, I don't have a contract with Twitch any longer. I no longer have a contract with Twitch. I also, if you noticed, stopped running ads once my contract ended. You can still subscribe, though, to support the show for $6 or for free with the Twitch Prime. Absolutely.
This is a nationwide and also a global situation. We've got our brothers and sisters in Germany that are also going to strike either today or tomorrow. So this is not just a United States issue. This is a global issue on how Amazon treats their workers.
So let me step back, and you do have Donald Trump coming in about 5-6 weeks, you know, and I'm wondering, you were very instrumental, if you think about it, in his getting elected in the first place. Not that you backed him, but you didn't back anybody. But that was unprecedented for a big union not to go with the Democrat. And a lot of people interpreted that, as you said last time I talked to you, that there were a good many of your members, a majority, that supported Donald Trump. So I'm just wondering.
Thank you, Xstyle333 for the 5 gifted subs, and thank you, Whizbers, for the 5 gifted subs as well. And Calm Like a Tom for the 10 gifted subs.
Would handle potential strikes in a Trump administration?
Well, that's up to the administration. I mean, look, I've been very clear with any and all administrations. the Biden administration. We've had a lot of contentious negotiations, and the message has been clear. Look, this is a fight between the Teamsters Union, representing the Amazon employees, versus Amazon, a white-collar crime syndicate. And it's our fight. And in the neighborhood I grew up in, if two people are fighting in the middle of the street and you really don't have anything to do with it, keep walking. If there's a resolution that any administration wants to put forth and hold this company accountable, we'll embrace it. But until the bad behavior stops, we're just going to continue to grow, we're going to continue to mobilize, and we're going to continue to extend.
What does Amazon have to do, in your eyes, to end this tomorrow?
Thank you, Ace41 for the 5 gifted. Thank you, Icasa Grande for the 5 gifted subs.
What they have to do is they have to agree to sit down and bargain a contract in good faith. That's the law.
I understand that. But what's the number one issue you would like to resolve?
I want to resolve. I want to make certain that they treat these employees with dignity and respect, make sure they pay them the wages and benefits that they deserve, and comply like every other company that's in the same exact business. We've set industry standards with the United Parcel Service contract, with the DHL contract, and they should adhere to those standards and treat their employees accordingly.
You know, a lot of say this is an opening salvo on the part of the Teamsters.
Thank you, Young Stinky, for the 5 gifted, even though I banned you last night in Will's chat.
Not to address these issues with these workers at these facilities, but to get into Amazon, a largely non-union shop for the most part, and make it a union shop. Is that true?
Well, Amazon spends $17 million in 2022 to 2023 to fight the union.
Just think if they invested that
money in their workers. I mean, the cynics can say whatever they want. There's always going to be cynics no matter what. At the end of the day, we represent workers, and we represent workers that have to put up with the abuse of an Amazon or any other corporate bigwig. So we're going to continue the fight. That's all I can tell you.
Any parting words of advice to the outgoing Democratic administration, to Democrats who had a tough go of it in the election? I mean, you were very frank about them at the time, not reaching out to you, not wanting to meet with you. But I'm just curious what you make of what they should do now.
Bing.
Well, I think what they should do right now is they claimed that they walked a picket line. We've got picket lines all over the country. No one's walked a picket line right now. No one's walked that Amazon picket line.
Fart sounded like Macarena. Thank you for the 5 gifted. I mean, he's definitely more harsh on Biden than he is on Trump. And that is a little bit inconsistent. And I do want to understand where it's coming from. You know what I mean? Like, that is something that I have been a little bit confused by.
We've got Joe Biden still in office. We've got Chuck Schumer and AOC.
The King of Brain, thank you for the 5
right in their
gifted.
backyard. Go out and show these workers how you support
Gagger,
them.
thank you for the 5
That's how you
gifted.
stop building bridges. That's how you stop building inroads back into the people that you once represented.
All right, Sean, very good seeing you. I mean, I noticed you're wearing a Teamsters sweatshirt. I mean, but you're so well known and you're so recognizable. Do you even need to put Teamsters on the shirt? I mean, they kind of know, right?
Well, listen, we lead from the front, Neil. I'm on the picket lines. I'm heading to California to jump on a picket line out there as well. So I'm in battle gear, man.
All right. I thought you'd have something like that as an answer. Sean, always good seeing you. Mary.
Yeah. No, they're friendly. You guys don't understand. Like, he gets a decent amount of play on Fox News and Fox Business to be able to have these opportunities. Part of that is because of the Trump glazing. And the other part is, like, he does have good rapport with those guys. Trump is more pro-labor. Come on now, Sean. No, I don't think I don't think Trump is more pro-labor. That's a ridiculous statement. Anyway, look at what they got in the new other provision stripped from the funding agreement. An anti-deepfake porn bill, funding for research on premature labor, dollars for treatment of sickle cell disease, dollars for breast and cervical cancer early detection, a program for Down syndrome research. They're now gone. And then dummies that go, can't those things be in their own bill? Why do they need to be in a CR? Guy who has no understanding of how the legislative body works for the past 3 fucking decades. Oh, I don't understand it. Dog, that's the only thing that passes. Okay, that and messaging bills that say, like, we should be able to kill you if you hurt the feelings of Israel. That's the only thing. That messaging bills such as we will kill you if you harm the feelings of Israel, the beautiful state, and unlimited funding for defense contractors. Okay, that's it. The only other way that you can get any fucking funding is through this. Or the eagle is America's bird. Oh, yeah, bald eagle's a national bird. I want to talk about heart-wrenching. Here's a leading pediatric cancer group from 2 days ago celebrating the coming passage of Gabrielle Miller Kids Act funding extension. It was just cut out of the CR after Elon and Trump demanded cuts. Fantastic times overall for America. Have you seen this account glazing Elon all of a sudden? Newsweek nailed it. Occupy Wall Street. What the fuck? This is not a real account, is it? What? Musk has suggested Mars would adhere to self-governing principles. Okay, I don't even want to. Someone probably bought the fucking handle, dude. Who gives a shit? The co-founder turned into a crypto bro, apparently. Okay, well, I'm not going to do the thing where I shit on anarchists. I'm not going to do that. Okay? I'm not going to do that. There's a hiring freeze in the Department of Interior, namely National Forest. No seasonal workers. Project 2025 wants to privatize national lands. It's not surprising. You've shown some real growth accepting anarchists. Yeah, I didn't say I'm accepting them. Here's the New Deal that is taking place in the funding bill that was supposed to pass. And then Elon Musk was like, I'm the president. I'm the captain now. How fucking dare you? And almost single-handedly